In the next 3 videos, we are going to cover the Juniper JWeb GUI. Alright, so let's look at the JWeb interface. Let's go ahead and log in here. Now if you notice, basically you just need to know the IP address of the device, and you need to know that the JWeb interface is enabled through the command line on the device. So you type in the address and it comes up, so just hit login. Now I have mine set up for HTTP, but if it were HTTPS, you would actually have to type that in at the address bar at the top. So we're going to go over all of the main features of the JWeb interface here. Mainly I use the JWeb interface for monitoring and maintenance. Sometimes adding or editing configuration files, things like that. But you have a lot of options for configuring here as well, so let's take a look at some of them. The first tab to highlight here is the Interfaces tab. And this basically gives you a kind of at-a-glance look at what's going on with your interfaces. What interfaces are up and what interfaces are down. And you notice that on this device I have 4 gigabit Ethernet ports on here, one of which is being used and the rest are down. I also have a T1 card in this router as well. And you can look at link aggregation, and of course I don't really have aggregate links set up right now. We also have the Authentication tab here. And this is actually firewall authentication, and I do not have any profiles set up, but this is where you would come to do that. Now, this can be somewhat of an easier way to set up NAT. Depending on what kind of NAT configuration you're trying to do, you can come in here and add your NAT source pools, and once you get your source pools in, you can add your source rules. I'll just click on Add here so you can see some of the options. But as you can see, sometimes if you are only doing a few, it might be quicker to do it through the JWeb interface rather than just commands. But if you do have a large amount of NAT rules to set up, it's definitely going to be easier to do it through the command line. You also have Destination NAT feature here as well. Now, on security, we're going to have your zones, your trust and untrust, and you can access policies here. You can see your policy elements, and of course there really isn't much configured on this device right now because this is my lab device. And we haven't really dove into a lot of hardcore configuration elements yet, but we will. You can access policy elements as far as address books, your applications when you're defining applications, and addresses for your address books. You can look at your screens. You can look at your flow. You also have AGLs and filters. 802.1x. And you can also come in here and configure IPsec tunnels. It's been my experience that actually doing this through the command line is easier than doing it through the JWeb interface. Now, all options are here, but mainly what I would use the JWeb interface for would be under the monitoring tab to actually look at and see in real time what's connecting up and what isn't. Because it's easier to do it that way rather than through the command line. We'll show you all of these options here just so you can get familiar with it. Now, with the auto tunnel, this is going to give you the different configuration elements for setting up your tunnel in phase 1 and phase 2. You can also do a manual tunnel configuration. We have a tab for WAN acceleration for the setup as well as to manage. We have switching options here, or we can set up LANs, spanning tree, IGMP snooping, and GVRP. We also have a tab for routing. This is where we can set up some basic routing policies and routing rules. As you can see here in the static routes, we don't have anything configured, but we can always add a route. And here you can see where the next hop is. You can click add and add your next hop in there. We have options for RIP, OSPF, BGP, and also routing policies here. And if we go in here and select new, we can create a new routing policy.